Hello and welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I am Bill Oram in Los Angeles, joined by Brenna Greene in Portland. Brenna, we have a lot to get to this week, which it's fitting that we're doing it right now because there's been late breaking news. I've always wanted to say that. Is that something you say in the TV biz? Late breaking news this hour?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever uttered the phrase late breaking news. I think I've just said breaking news. Kept it simple, you know? Yeah. I don't know, but also like my idea of late is not other people's idea of late because a lot of times I'm working until 11:30 at night. So therefore, it's not really late to me. It's just kind of a normal day.
So I said this hour. That's not quite true because I've spent the last hour. It's been a little. It hasn't been quite that recent. But also, I've lost a lot of time today standing on the shuttle on the Hertz bus from LAX. I used to live here, Brenna. I lived here for a decade. I had my children here. I got my puppy here, and I am looking around, not really sure how I did it. Like there's so many people around me.
Not envious of you and where you're at right now, that's for sure.
But one we're gonna have one less person around us going forward in the sports world in Portland, and that is the iconic Christine Sinclair. She is retiring. I don't want to say finally retiring, but obviously this has been kind of an annual question of how much longer she wanted to play. She is the all-time leader in international goals scored, either men or women, for Canada. She's among the most capped players in the history of international soccer. Obviously a fixture for the Thorns, led the University of Portland to a pair of NCAA women's soccer championships at the beginning of the millennium, I guess, 2002 and 2005, teammate with Megan Rapinoe. I observed on Twitter that those Pilots women's soccer teams are some of the greatest teams we've ever seen across all sports in the state of Oregon. I mean, her numbers in college were insane. It's something I put them on my Instagram story. It'll take me a minute to find them. So I think we all sort of suspected this was coming, Brenna, but as you reflect on Christine Sinclair's impact, what stands out to you? What stands out to you about having covered her over these last couple of years?
I mean, I think the thing that stands out the most to me is that I was not a kid who grew up and played soccer here.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, apparently when I was little, I feel like I might have said this on the podcast before, but when I was little, my mom asked me if I wanted to play soccer. And I said, Mom, why would I want to run around on a field with a bunch of sweaty girls and get all muddy and dirty and rained on? So, logic, apparently. And so my mom said, okay, well, then you're not doing soccer. Thank you for answering that question for me. But even so, growing up here, I would never call myself a soccer fan growing up here because that just wasn't a part of what I was doing back in those days. But I still knew the name Christine Sinclair. And I think that is a true testament to how much she has done and how much her name resonates around here. I didn't grow up going to games on the Bluff. I didn't grow up going to any soccer games at all. I'm trying to think of going to soccer games growing up, and outside of a few of my cousins' soccer games that I would happen to go to, that's it. So it was not something that was a part of my lexicon, but I still knew who Christine Sinclair was. And I think that that is just a part of her legacy. But it's also one of those things where, I think because she is so understated as a person, she's not someone who's Christine Sinclair is not a huge fan of doing media. Let's put it
Sure.
She's not somebody she's not going to have a press conference for this, not until, the week of the final regular season home game, which, says a lot because a lot of times when you have a athlete retiring, it's like, all right, let's do a press conference immediately. Nope.
Right.
No, we're waiting. But she still, gosh, where was I going with that? Don't we all hate it when we have that moment where we're like, I was going somewhere with what I was about to say with her, her being who she is. Oh, it's something that you don't realize how prolific she was until you actually look at the numbers, because she's not someone that's front and center in terms
yeah.
of that sort of stuff all the time. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So, I mean, I was just so that, this is something that, we all kind of suspected was coming. So I did some prep for this, let's put it that way, a few weeks ago. And I helped out with, hey, these are things we might want to know around here in case this does happen. And just even looking into her stats, I was just absolutely mind blown. I'm just going to be frank, I had no idea it was that insane. So, yeah.
So I got those numbers from college
Yes,
that I was
please.
talking about earlier.
Please.
In 4 years at the University of Portland, she did redshirt what would have been her senior year to play with the Canada national team. But she scored 110 goals with 32 assists in 94 games. So she was on average was scoring something like 1.2 goals per match in college, which is
I believe
ridiculous.
She still holds the college record for goals scored in a season for women. I believe she does. Just
Christine Sinclair was a part of the greatest sporting event I have ever covered. 2012, I was a 25-year-old reporter at the Salt Lake Tribune, assigned to cover the Summer Olympics in London. And in the women's soccer semifinal between the U.S. and Canada, Christine Sinclair scored a hat trick. The match was tied 3-3 until a rising star with a pink headband named Alex Morgan scored the winner at the death, 120th +3. The game was moments away from penalty kicks, and Alex Morgan crushed the hopes and dreams of Team Canada. Christine Sinclair at her very best, a hat trick with 3 goals there. Just standard business for her, and one of the all-time greats in her sport. One of the great all-time greats in Oregon sports, and one of the all-time greats just kind of across the board, and obviously a Canadian icon. So happy trails to Christine Sinclair. We will be talking more about her as she wraps up her career here with the Thorns. We'll be talking to her when she eventually does have that press conference, as you said. Brenna, this week, I need to give you a quick
shortage of news.
A little background on my week.
Oh, I can't wait.
Obviously covered Oregon State Purdue last Saturday. Not a lot to talk about there, but had some family errands I needed to take care of. Specifically, I needed to haul a load of wood from my mom's house in the Columbia River Gorge to my sister's house in Hillsborough. There's a reason for all of this, but that is what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so I decided that Monday would be the best day to do it, because that seemed the most likely to be a quiet day. I had a column written. I had the Bill Oram's Big Ten ready to go. We've taken to calling it the Bob 10 in-house. Bill Oram's Big Ten, Bob 10. So the Bob 10 was out in the world. I was like, this will be fine. Checked my phone midday. Nick Dashel texted me that the Pac-12 was rating 3 conferences. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. I can handle the Pac-12. And then we had the Portland Diamond Project finally relaunching its interest, but locking down property for the first time, really, in this whole 8-year bid.
It's only been 8 years. It's felt like 15. Continue.
Getting the furthest along with a specific piece of property with Zidell Yards on the South Waterfront. And if that wasn't enough, then we get Blazer Vision. The Portland Trail Blazers, we knew they were going to be on local TV. We had spitballed on this podcast about where that was going to be among the local partners. It's going to be K2 and the Sinclair, the other Sinclair stations in market. So the Blazers are going to be on local TV, as we knew, with a streaming component called Blazer Vision. And if you're old like me, you remember when Blazer Vision, as I think I've shared on this podcast, was channel 42, and it was just static all day until 7 o'clock when it just roared to life. So those are the 3 things that all happened while I was loading wood into my sister's shed out in Hillsborough. So poor planning by me, but more importantly, 3 major news stories And
Can I insert one thing? Would you like to know
yeah,
what I
please.
was doing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, impromptu, the stars aligned where I could go down to Lakeview, which, for those of you who are unaware, is 6 hours away on the border of California, which is where my mom is from. If you would like to go back to 1962 and just hang out for a while, Lakeview's got you, okay? The most shocking thing I saw while I was there, by the way, was a Cybertruck in a driveway, which I did not have on my bingo card for Lake County anywhere. Anyways, I'm still processing that. I literally was in the car and I was like, what? But I tell you this because the last time I went to Lakeview was when the Big Ten blew up, or when the Pac-12 blew up and Oregon went to the Big Ten.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is that this may all just kind of be my fault, because apparently whenever I go to Lakeview, the world goes insane. So
is that why both the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are stuck at 7 schools right now? Because you left?
Yes.
You left Lakeview? Do we need to send you back to Lake County? Do we need a GoFundMe
we just need to freeze me in Lake County? Well, I will say also, by the way, Mountain West is technically at 6 schools because Hawaii does not count towards their total. Interesting. So yeah, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, of course. You know, last time we were literally driving through a town called Silver Lake. I believe it's Silver Lake.
I've been to Silver Lake.
Okay.
It's near Christmas Valley.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong then. Maybe I'm wrong about where the town is. I'd have to look it up to make sure. We're driving through a very, very small town. And that is where I took the press conference for Oregon going to the Big Ten, outside of a bar in that town, because I made my mom stop and I said, I have to be on this press conference right now. And I know the moment we leave this town, I will not have service again. So you got to stop in this bar parking lot. We got to sit here for a half an hour. My mom loved me. I think I've explained that on this podcast before too. So yeah, anyways, I kind of feel like this the Manic Monday that was may have been brought on me, because apparently brought on by me, because apparently I pulled the Lakeview card and the world goes insane. So
well, I just want to say that, I mean, you know, outside of the Silver Lake Bar and Grill, if that's what it was according to Google Maps, maybe.
I'm going to know what it is in about 5 seconds, by the way.
Is a perfectly fine place to do the press conference, because Steve Holwerda, the chair of the Board of Trustees for the University of Oregon, was conducting the meeting. Well, unless we're talking about the meeting. Are we talking about the meeting or the press conference? Because Steve Holwerda, during the Board of Trustees vote meeting,
was on the golf course.
Was on the golf course in like the 8th bunker at the Eugene Country Club. So, like, let's just...
You are correct. I was at the Silver Lake Cafe and Bar. I have a picture.
Yes, it showed up on Google Maps.
I had to document that absolutely insane moment.
Did you go inside and eat these fried cheese curds with carrot sticks that I'm seeing?
No, we stayed in the parking lot.
This would be a hell of an order. I see a hamburger. I see a meat pie. I see some jalapeno poppers. I see another meat pie. Maybe that's supposed to be a taco salad, and another hamburger. This must be a shared plate. This is too much food for any one person. If you are a regular at the Silver Lake Cafe and Bar and can tell us what exactly we're looking at here, that would be great. But by we, I mean me. Okay, so the world. We had the news of a real city on Monday, Brenna. It felt like a major sports market on Monday. We had breaking news in college football, Blazers, and Major League Baseball. So, my question to you is, which one did you think of those 3 things was the most impactful development?
Oh, easily the Pac-12. Yeah, I mean, the baseball is still a wish. Okay. The Blazer vision is great, and I'm glad that, you know, it's back on linear television, but I also don't think that was as much of a shock to the majority of us. I mean, we all knew that was the direction that it was
Mhm.
going. But the Pac-12 was playing out in real time. I mean, at one point my alma mater was going.
Mhm.
Then it wasn't going.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, the moment that tweet came out, I thought to myself, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I hadn't heard anything at all. I'm plugged in enough up there that I feel like I
Yeah.
would have heard something.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was just an absolutely that because that thing was playing out in real time too. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't like something. The other two things were kind of like, this is done.
Yeah.
We are still not done with the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree with you. So let's start there and let's
Yep.
talk
I think we gotta
this
start
through
there.
because and I'm going to probably mess up my order of operations a little bit here.
That is
But
fine.
I think the first thing we heard on Monday was that Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida and UTSA were signing back up to stay in the AAC or had committed to the AAC and turned down the Pac-12. The president of Memphis called it a bad deal that the Pac-12 had offered. I think it was only like $2.5 million. So the offer wasn't that great. Then later, UNLV turned the Pac-12 down. Utah State joined the Pac-12 to bring them to 7. And then by the end of the night on Monday, it was reported because that didn't the Mountain West had signed an agreement to stick together, but it required the signatures of all 8 members to make it binding. Utah State did not sign and instead jumped to the Pac-12, so therefore the Mountain West didn't have an agreement. UNLV starts looking around the room and says, man, without Utah State, what are we thinking? UNLV says, we're going to think about it. I think that was Monday. And then the Gonzaga component too, where it was reported that Gonzaga was in as a basketball only member, and then kind of the classic, the classic Lee Corso, not so fast. So I think that was sort of how it played out. UNLV ended up ultimately staying in the Mountain West later this week, as did Air Force, which was flirting with the American. And now nobody really knows where the Pac-12 is going to go. So my question to you is, do you think that the Pac-12 made any tactical errors along the way in how they went about this? And then 2, where do you think they should look next?
2's rough. Then again, it's rough for both them and the Mountain West.
Yeah.
I mean, one, yeah. I mean, looking back on it, if you could keep 4 schools quiet for as long as you did, I don't know how keeping another 2 would have been difficult. Whether it be in the Mountain West or whether it be, I mean, I can understand dealing with the school outside of the Mountain West might have made it more difficult for things to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that point, but the fact that it kind of feels like they did a victory parade before the war was won.
Yeah, I agree.
You have Scott Barnes out there just doing his thing and going for it. Which, I mean, I don't blame him for doing it. I mean, I feel like that had to be done when it was done. But the fact that you guys went and gloated about this new conference when it was not a conference yet is premature. So yeah, I think that is the thing that I think was the worst about it, was them kind of acting like they were already a conference when they technically aren't seen as a conference right now. And then the number 2 is that they couldn't try to just line up 2 more schools before they came out and did this, because if you got 4, I don't understand why another 2 would have been difficult. So I understand what their thought process was. Probably was like, oh, if we get these 4 schools on, it's going to be easier to convince other schools to come.
Yeah.
So let's just try to get these 4 on right now and then do it. But obviously, having a plan in college athletics never goes the way you'd imagine. So yeah, for me, like that's there were definitely some errors made, and we're still waiting to see how they rectify those errors. How do you feel about it?
I I think several things have kind of gone awry along the way. And I think you said something that I've kind of been beating the drum of, which is you need to know that you're going to be able to execute part 2 of your plan before you start part 1. And 1 through 7, the Pac-12 schools are far more impressive, better funded, more competitive than the 1 through 6.5, 6, 7 that the Mountain West has. And that is the Pac-12 is a more powerful conference in that sense. But where they're going to look for 8 is a really interesting question, because it almost certainly will be lower in terms of funding and stature than almost any school that remains in the Mountain West, at least in terms of funding. New Mexico, you don't want. I mean, Nevada, you didn't want. But here's my question about the Nevada thing, and I understand
you're coming to the right person.
Okay, so there was some thinking kind of early on that UNLV couldn't leave without Nevada. I think that was debunked, that they could, but it might be complicated. If I'm the Pac-12 looking back at this, and if I wanted UNLV, if UNLV was important to me, couldn't I have put my pride aside? I understand why Nevada, in terms of facilities and funding, like it's not an additive school that you're bringing in. But if it gets you UNLV, wouldn't it be better to bring in Nevada with UNLV? You're at 8, and then you're just done, rather than now you've brought in Utah State, which is fine. I don't think Utah State was going to be on anybody's short list of schools to get this done when Plan A was being implemented, but Utah State, it's fine. But who's going to be number 8? And so that leads me back to that question, and I want your take on this too. But you start looking at who's actually available. And I mean, not who's available, but like who is out there that you would want from the group of 5 that makes even a little bit of sense geographically, especially if it's going to be a one-off. If you were bringing in Memphis and Tulane, at least they have travel partners. If you go get Texas State, which is, between Austin and San Antonio and San Marcos, Texas, that's been a school that has been funding football at an accelerated rate. They have a new 25,000 seat stadium. That's a school that you hear a lot about. Seems like it's going to end up either in the Pac-12 or the Mountain West. Would you rather have Texas State as a little bit of a speculative buy, or would you rather have UNLV and Nevada? I think the answer would be UNLV and Nevada. Sacramento State has been trying to get in the mix here. And as an old Big Sky guy myself, as you are, Sacramento State was a doormat in the Big Sky for a long time. Then Troy Taylor gets there. They have a lot of success quickly. They start winning, and then people got excited about football. Stingers up in Sacramento, and now they've got some enthusiasm. They want to build a stadium. People want to spend money there. I had people in the know making the case for Sacramento State, which is large media market. The ability to like really kind of grow your brand in Northern California. You already have Fresno State, so expand that with Sacramento. The problem is that Sacramento State doesn't have a brand outside of its alumni. It doesn't really penetrate in Sacramento. So I have a hard time seeing that being smarter than even like a Texas State. But this will be my last point on this, and I'll yield my time. But it does seem like the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are now going to be fighting over these schools. Like, who can be the first to get a commitment or to get Texas State to sign on? Who can be the first to get to, I mean, I don't think it's Sac State. Like, Sac State makes more sense than the Mountain West. Does the Mountain West have to go get UTEP? Does the Mountain West say, we're going to go get all of these Texas schools? We're going to get UTEP, Texas State, North Texas, and have like a real Texas footprint. And if they do that, what does the Pac-12 do to counter to get to 8 and to sort of like have a runway toward the future? It feels like they could get boxed out by the Mountain West unless they win this lawsuit and have more money in their pockets to go make another bid to those AAC schools like Memphis and Tulane. So,
we all know that lawsuit is going to go on for years.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, man. First of all, when it comes to, for those who are unaware why I said that you're coming to the right place, it's because I worked in Reno for 2 years. So I have I have definitely some familiarity with the school, and definitely some familiarity with the UNLV Nevada rivalry, which we will refer to it as Nevada and not UNR, like those people at UNLV do. Okay, rude. This is a thing, by the way. Honestly, just side note, one of the pettiest rivalries in America is UNLV Nevada, and people have no idea. But it's like extremely petty. They do not like each other.
That's great. I want that in my conference.
Exactly. Yeah, they do. Like, it's like, I mean, I remember, I won't say. Remember how UNLV had that mascot logo that came out? Gosh, I mean, it would have been during my time there, so it would have been 2017, 2018. They rebranded what their logo looked like for athletics, and it was very widely panned. Nobody liked it. They stopped using it within a week or two. Okay. So during that time,
was this one with a cowboy hat on a?
Yes, it was like a space cowboy hat.
Yeah,
it was like spacey.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember this, but I'm now up to speed.
Yes. So during that time, the president of Nevada went to the president UNLV, I believe, and said, "Hey, your athletic department routinely is referring to us as UNR. That is not what we are called in athletics. We are called Nevada. You need to tell your athletic department to knock it off." Well, to this day, if you go look up on UNLV's website, they're still saying UNR. But, that was communicated. They didn't stop doing it. So at the game that was in Reno that year, they said, "All right, screw it." And so they put the old logo up on the scoreboard for UNLV for the entire game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they still do it. Because that's just what it is. People highly underestimate that rivalry and how intense it is. Which I had no idea until I got to the state. And then I was like, totally. Oh, wow. They don't like each other at all. Also, fun fact, this is a weird one. UNLV and Nevada have the oldest rivalry trophy in the entire of all the rivalry trophies.
What is it?
So it's a cannon. It's a cannon that does not operate anymore, but it is a cannon. Because it's called the Battle of the Fremont Cannon because UNLV because the state of Nevada was founded during the Civil War. It's the only state that was established during the Civil War. So they say that they were battle born there. That's another distinctly Nevada saying.
So I had no idea this was a thing, and I'm on UNLV's football schedule, and I was like, maybe it won't be the case here. And there it is on the schedule: Houston, Utah Tech, Kansas, Fresno State, Syracuse, Utah State, Oregon State, Boise State, Hawaii, San Diego State, San Jose State, all spelled out, full names. Mm-hmm. November 30th, a Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, the 50th battle for the Fremont Cannon versus UNR. That's an outstanding observation or piece of information. Thank you for bringing it to the Oregonian Sports Podcast.
There is no love lost between those two schools, and people don't really realize it because it's a Mountain West rivalry between two programs that generally have not been relevant. Yeah. But by the way, that doesn't mean that Nevada can't be relevant. Mm-hmm. I mean, it has before. That was a long time ago when it was really relevant. By the way, I also wouldn't be surprised if Boise State didn't want Nevada in there because Boise State and Nevada do not like each other either. There is no love lost there as well.
Hey, I remember the 2010 game. I went to bed. Was it 2010? And I went to bed. Kaepernick versus Boise State. I went to bed. I was in Idaho at the time. I was not too far from Boise. I went to bed, and I woke up and found out that Nevada had won in like double overtime. So some classics between those two too. Yes.
So and that rivalry has stayed no matter what. Nevada and Boise State do not like each other. So there's always little intricacies going on here that people don't really, I mean, unless you're in it, understand. I too am on your side of, okay, Nevada is not that bad. If you want to just get the conference done, let's do it. Like, I mean, Nevada has had some great NCAA tournament runs in men's basketball. They went last year. This is
Did
not a
lose to
school.
the University of Montana in the round of 64 in 2006. A great Grizz team led by the likes of Kevin Criswell, Andrew Strait, Coach Larry Kristoviak. A young man named Bill Oram got into a car with some friends in Missoula late the evening before the 12 p.m. tip-off in Salt Lake City. Made it 50 miles east of Missoula to a little town called Drummond, where that old tin can they were in broke down. Got towed back to Missoula. Had to rouse another friend from their sleep and say, "Would you like to go to Salt Lake City for a basketball game?" Got in the car again. Stopped in Pocatello to sleep for 3 hours at a Motel 6. Drove the rest of the way. Drove straight to the Huntsman Center up on the hill in Salt Lake City to watch the mighty Grizzlies of Montana triumph over Nick Fazekas and the Nevada Wolfpack.
Well, I believe the year before was when they beat Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament, so we don't need to talk about that. So yeah, no, I mean they do have, like, it's not like their men's basketball program has been a decrepit program. I mean, I was there when Musselman was there, and they went 3 straight years, and had that crazy comeback against Cincinnati. So it's not
not a dormant sports institution.
No. Has their football team been good ever since Norvell left? No, they've been real bad, okay? And even when Norvell was there, like, it wasn't great. They had one decent year. Jay Norvell is now the head coach of Colorado State. So, that is, I understand the problem there, but I think you're totally correct. And, like, okay, just do it. Like, it's not like Nevada is that much worse than Utah State. Like, just get it done. And now you're in this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're in this situation where it just doesn't feel like there's anywhere else to turn, which is one of the reasons why this has gone kind of silent over the last few days. Is there really are no good quote unquote options left, unless you go back to like a Memphis and just throw a bag at them. So it's where do they go next? Like, it just, there's nothing that really makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the big problem they have right now.
It does seem like either they have to go get a school that just sort of fits the bill to go through the motions, like UTEP. Yeah. If you saw my face, if listeners didn't see the face I made, but it was a face. I mean, you're staying out of the Mountain West because they've got a grant of rights through whatever 2033 now or something. So it's not Wyoming, it's not New Mexico. So now you start looking at the Sun Belt and who's in the Sun Belt that you might want. That's where Texas State comes in as a speculative ad. It's like it's an investment kind of in the future. I don't think the Big Sky makes sense. Including Sacramento State. I don't think, like, there is an argument to be made that Montana State should go to the Mountain West or should be go FBS, but that doesn't really move the needle in terms of market viewership. It's not going to help your media rights valuation. So that doesn't make a ton of sense for me with the Pac-12. And in the Sun Belt, who do you like in the Sun Belt? I'm pulling it up right now. In the West Division of the Sun Belt, there's Arkansas State, Louisiana Monroe, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Texas State, and Troy. I mean, that. And then there's the Eastern Division. If you're really trying to go coast to coast and James Madison's there, you might want James Madison if you were going coast to coast. But also, you really have to think hard about the cost of this travel in this conference. Yeah. Because the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the travel is a strain on the athletes, no question. They can afford it, though, because the media rights, paychecks are north of $30 million. In this conference, it's going to be what, 8 million, 9 million, 10 million? It's going to be harder to afford, these coast to coast trips I think that has to be part of the consideration for the Memphis and Tulane type schools and anybody east of Colorado State, frankly. So I'm with you. I just feel like, I think in one sense, this is a time to sort of take a step back and figure out what you really want and be patient. But also, I think that by doing that, you run the risk of giving the Mountain West a runway to go land the schools that you might otherwise find yourself wanting to take. So it's a real quagmire, and I understand why people are saying, okay, it's time for the Mountain West and the Pac-12 to shake hands and agree to merge. And I'm not there yet. I don't. I
I'm not
mean,
either.
if I'm the Pac-12, you have the best 7 schools. You don't want the 7 schools that the Mountain West has. You might want 2 of them. You might be happy with 2 of 4 of them at this point, but like you don't want San Jose State.
No.
You don't want.
That was funny when San Jose State came out and said they were committed to the Mountain West. By the way,
yeah, we know.
Thanks for letting me know.
We know. Like,
yeah. Thank you.
So I don't know. I don't know where you go, and I think it's going to be a fascinating kind of race to watch as they go down the line. Because I think honestly, all things being equal, once you've been spurned by UNLV, maybe you would take Wyoming. Maybe you would have taken New Mexico, but now they're all locked in and they're off the table. So you're kind of back to the drawing board in a really difficult way.
I just don't really understand what UNLV did, to be completely frank with you. Like,
well, they need the money. They're getting $25 million. They got paid. Yeah. That's it. I mean, it's a straight money play.
With money they don't know if they're going to get.
But it does feel like the Mountain West has played this to a draw right now.
Yeah.
And they've boxed the Pac-12 out of being able to get to where it wants to go. And so if they look around and they're like, hey, we're going to be fighting over UTEP for survival, maybe they do need to come together at some point. But I just don't think we're there yet.
And, I will say this. The other, part of the Gonzaga part of this that actually is interesting to me, at least, is that, the current commissioner of the Mountain West was the former commissioner of the WCC.
Mm-hmm.
So you think she hasn't dealt with schools trying to leave before?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's been some feisty phone calls with Gonzaga folks before.
Yeah.
Fairly certain of it. So, she got a bit of an education in this in the WCC. She did get caught flat-footed, but I definitely did not think that she was going to, if the only way the Pac-12 was going to do this with the Mountain West, I did feel this way, was that they did it under the cloth of night, or whatever the phrase is, under the cloak of night, whatever you want to call it. Because I knew that once she is somebody that I wouldn't tussle with Gloria.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and Gloria, and I think Gloria might have felt like she had a little more leverage than she had when it came to this alliance with the Pac-12. Chris Vanini in The Athletic had a piece today saying that the Mountain West was looking for upwards of $30 million for a second year of the scheduling partnership with the Pac-12 after it was already $14 million this year. So it was going to be more than double in year 2. I mean, that's why the Pac-12 threw up their hands and said, we can't do this. And that's why I wrote, that she overplayed her hand. Yes. But once you see where it lands and everything, like you said, everything's sort of on the table, she is a formidable, leader, and frankly does have a little more experience in this domain, I think, than the folks in charge at with the Pac-12, whether it's at the commissioner level, the president level. I mean, you have a new president at Oregon State, relatively new president at Oregon State. You have an interim AD at Washington State.
I think she's official now.
Is she? Okay, sorry.
Yes.
And so, I mean, just like a lot of moving pieces in the Pac-12, whereas Gloria, as you said, does have a lot of experience, obviously rose to the occasion to keep her conference intact. To what end, I'm not totally sure, because this Mountain West isn't very good, but like, obviously you're the commissioner of it. You need to save it. Or you need to try to save it. I don't know. It's
looking at you. Well, I can't even say his name anymore. Gosh. I'm thinking of the guy who used to be in charge of the Pac-12, but I have wiped him from my memory.
Kliavkoff?
Yeah, George Kliavkoff. I kept on GGG. George Kliavkoff. Looking at you, buddy. Great work. Yeah. You really fought.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 had the slowest march to death over those 12 years from Larry Scott to George Kliavkoff.
But he did nothing to try to save it once.
Is the best outcome for the Pac-12 here that they end up being able to go back to the American schools? And I mean, in my opinion, if you could get the 3, and I don't want South Florida. I understand that the conference that went that direction. Supposedly, it wasn't a unanimous decision from the existing 6 schools in the Pac-12. To me, I would want Memphis, Tulane, and Texas San Antonio. Those 3 make the most sense.
Yeah.
South Florida. Back to my point about the travel and the cost and all that, but
yeah, I don't really get South Florida either. I don't really get it. Or do you just go back to Memphis? It's like, just go get one more. That's all Memphis, you need.
But I mean, look at them. I mean, geographically, Memphis would be on its own out there.
I agree.
And for every sport outside of football, that would create some really interesting travel, some really interesting trips. I mean, there's a reason. The Pac-12 was such a perfect conference in terms of its travel pairs, travel partners. But whatever, I'll come to grips with this someday, or not. So I don't know. Memphis as a solo ad. I mean, Memphis Tulane made sense as at least a pair.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Let's chat Diamond Project, because this was unlike the TV stuff, unlike Christine Sinclair's retirement. I don't think that we necessarily expected to be getting more news from the Diamond Project, at least not on this timeline. And so many times we've heard from the Diamond Project, if we don't have something by the end of this year, then we probably need to really reevaluate whether or not it's worth doing. That was like 2 years ago that Craig Cheek said that to me. And they kind of keep going. And I absolutely hated their efforts to take over Red Tail for a ballpark. I thought the Red Tail Golf Center ballpark proposal was ludicrous. I wrote that. It would have, the multifold issues, including, though, that I'm a big believer in the power of, what a ballpark district could do for Portland, sort of as it's trying to revive itself. If we see this through to actually happening, a ballpark at the Lloyd Center, for example, would have been incredible. Would have been incredible for the central, east side. So from that standpoint, I'm back in. I'm back in with the Zidell Yards location for a ballpark, because it would be spectacular. It would be gorgeous. You've got a letter of intent to buy it. But then but then I start reading more that the letter of intent is, 120-day due diligence period, which is fine. And then it's a 42-month letter of intent to purchase. And I'm like, well, is that different from the exclusive negotiating window that the Diamond Project had with Terminal 2? How real is it? Because it feels like there's a lot of ifs around the purchase. And I don't know if it would be that different if they actually had bought it. They have the deed for the location, because you still don't have a baseball team. So maybe that doesn't matter. And just a note on Zidell Yards. It already has Max. It has Max service. It's relatively easily accessible. It's next to the freeway. You're between all the bridges. It's close to my house. It makes a lot of sense if Portland was going to have a Major League Baseball team and a ballpark. You could, the South Waterfront has been an underutilized district. A lot of potential there, a lot of room for growth. But I guess the question just becomes, does this actually get Portland a step closer to landing a Major League Baseball team? Does Rob Manfred say, "Oh, I love that site, so now Portland has now climbed back up in my estimation of where I want to expand"?
Oh yeah, okay. First of all, you hit on the letter of intent thing. I think everybody thinks that this is bought, done, deal, delivered, and it's signed, sealed, delivered, and it's that's not what a letter of intent is. So just so that's the first thing that jumped out to me. I was like, "You haven't bought it." But my greater point is this: there are 2 things in this world that I will believe once I see pen to paper. One we've already touched on in this podcast. Number 1, Gonzaga being in any conference other than the WCC. I will not believe that until it is 100% a done deal. And number 2 is Portland having a baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just, I'm sorry. I've heard wolf be cried too many times. I'm a believe it when I see it person at this point, because I don't buy it. I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like we have our yearly Portland Diamond Project news. I'm not going to be making any friends over there right now. That's okay. But yeah, it's like, oh, here we go. Here's the yearly Portland Diamond Project news. And so I'm just not a believer. But beyond that, it's like, when the MLB has not seriously talked about expansion in quite some time, and we all know number 1 on that list is Montreal. It's not here. If and when it does happen. And it's just, I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Like, and baseball generally is a sport that is not on the up and up right now. It is struggling in a lot of different ways. And
Ohtani just has 55 home runs and 55 stolen bases.
I don't mean in terms of that. I mean in terms of
it's very exciting.
I mean it in terms of like their media outlook. Their do I think that they are necessarily in a position to expand right now? Are they making new fans?
Yeah.
Are new baseball fans coming into the fold? No, that's not the situation currently. So, between the fact that their media rights deal is insane, and secondly, like, it's all over the place. You never know if you're a local baseball fan. I listen a lot to Jimmy Traina on the Sports Illustrated podcast, and he rants and raves about how he never knows where the Yankees are on every night because they're on like 4 different places.
Yeah.
So that's a mess, and I just don't really think that's really, it's not bringing a ton of money into the league. And then on top of it, you aren't making new fans. So why would your league be in a position to expand right now? And like I said, Portland is not number 1 on those expand. Like, it's been very clearly communicated that Portland is not number 1 on that list, and they're not number 2 probably either. So, and there's no teams that are looking to leave their current cities. So, unless something really weird happens with the Oakland A's, which I mean could happen, but I don't foresee them coming here. So, if they were going to come here when they've already, made that a reality, instead of going to Las Vegas and basically still not really knowing if they're actually going to Las Vegas. So, if we were, if there's a market that you could go to and make it work, it would probably be here, because there are so many people who wanted to make it work, but it's not happening. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I can't get too excited about this. I can't. There's nothing that is leading me to believe that something is going to be different this time, especially in terms of MLB and what they want.
So
I feel like it's like an ex-girlfriend trying to get back together with their ex.
So Rob Manfred said this summer, is this summer? Yep, or in May, that he wants to have an expansion process in place by 2029, which is when he's done as commissioner. So if you think of this as,
okay,
Rob Manfred wants to at least get the ball rolling on expansion within his last term, which is a 4-year term, 25 to 29.
And then have somebody else new come in?
Well, or I mean, I don't think these teams will have started playing, but I think sites would have been identified. Teams, the process would be, you would be in the process of expanding, and then somebody new comes in and they have the 32 team MLB. To me, there's a few things. You mentioned Montreal. Absolutely a ton of momentum toward Montreal. Nashville has a very organized effort.
Yes.
And Salt Lake City, I think, is probably number 1 on the list right now.
You think so? Okay.
I do, because Salt Lake has the land, which Portland finally has. Salt Lake has a known ownership group with a record of success in the Miller family that owned the Utah Jazz for 40 years. And it has the support of local politicians and government agencies. The state of Utah just earmarked $900 million for a stadium project. You're not getting that in Oregon. You're not getting that kind of support in Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and this, this is kind of a tangential point, but I went to the Greater Portland summit on Tuesday, where Dwayne Hankins and Heather Davis and KL Wambacher from the Hops all got together to talk to business leaders and political leaders about the power of sports and the economic power of sports. And, listening to KL talk about the challenges he had going to the legislature to get funding for their new ballpark, and the way they had to tell the story it took 3 efforts to hear, kind of the way it was striking to me that civic leaders in Portland need such a rudimentary reminder or explanation of why sports are good for the greater good. And one thing, so Fred Rivera is the general counsel and a vice president at the Seattle Mariners, and he was there and he gave the keynote address. And one thing he said that I thought was really interesting was that if you could go to, the governor of your state or to the legislature and say, I have a project that is going to bring 6 million people into a part of our city that otherwise wouldn't be coming to that part of the city, everyone would be signing up immediately. It's when you say it's for a sports team that people balk and think, well, why can't the billionaires do it themselves? And, we've seen kind of the power of these like public-private partnerships. Seattle has obviously had a ton of success, is on a huge uptick right now. With its events, the events that it's getting, they're going to have, the World Cup matches played there. I just don't know that you could get the political support behind a ballpark, and especially like any public contribution to a ballpark in Portland or in the state of Oregon right now, that would put it on the same level as the support you're seeing in other places, notably Salt Lake. The location's great. The location's spectacular. It's not, 150 acre site where you get to build out a whole district, but there's a footprint where you could put a ballpark and then other things develop around it along that South Waterfront corridor. So, I mean, that piece of it is answered, but this has been the biggest question about the Diamond Project for these 8 years that we're talking about. Who is going to own it? Who is the money? Because also in these 8 years that the Diamond Project has been aspiring to find a site, prices are going up. I mean, inflation, baby. Everything's going up. The expansion fees for a Major League Baseball team might have been $1.5 billion when this all started. Now they're 2.5. And cost to build a stadium, whatever it would have been, double it. So the Portland Diamond Project has somebody with so much money, so many billions of dollars, that they have been able to ride this out, keep funding the Diamond Project's efforts, put money behind a land agreement, and is going to be able to fund all this other stuff. Like, who is that person? And I think it would go a really long ways toward credibility if the Diamond Project, I mean, like, if the Wizard of Oz would reveal himself or herself, because as it is, is there a double-digit billionaire who is funding this and is like able to be serious about Major League Baseball, or does Craig Cheek just have a really good marketing budget and still need a billionaire? They say they've got a billionaire. They say they have the money. That part's not a problem, And they've told me, that when it comes out who it is, you'll understand why. Well, what does that mean? So I just think like
trust. I don't understand how they've never built up enough for me to trust them.
So like I think Craig Cheek's intent is real. Like I think he is serious about trying to bring Major League Baseball to Portland. I think he seriously believes he can. I think at least there's a shot. I believe that I don't think a lot of people would have devoted 8 years to this quest if they weren't serious. I think that there's fair. and I think I don't like the social media conversation around the Diamond Project. Like every time something comes up, I mean, there's so much just reflexive shit talk about the Diamond Project, and
to be fair, they've kind of done it to themselves.
They have, but I also think it's like this is a group that is trying to do something good here, and I think that for the most part, they're not hurting my feelings by trying. So, like I appreciate the effort. I thought Red Tail was a disaster, but I appreciate the effort. But to establish that credibility we're talking about, tell us who it is. Tell us who's behind it. Where is the money coming from? Because I don't think it's Phil Knight, right? But like, let's just say it was Phil Knight. And if all of a sudden it's like, oh, Phil Knight wants to bring baseball to Portland, suddenly I have more confidence in that effort.
Yes.
Because I believe in the person as much as I do the money. And they don't have that right now. And I think that's the biggest thing hurting the Diamond Project in terms of local perception. But also I think, with government leaders, with Major League Baseball, everybody wants to know who the money is.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair ask.
And we're at a really interesting inflection point with sports in Portland, because you have the WNBA here now.
Mm-hmm.
The Bethals are heavily invested in Portland. The Thorns, WNBA franchise starting in 2 years. The Blazers, are, have, summers of renovations forthcoming. The women's Final Four is coming in 2030. And now you have a little bit of momentum, however much TBD, behind a ballpark at Zidell Yards. Can Portland kind of row in the same direction to get behind some of these projects and elevate Portland as a sports town? That doesn't mean you have to get Major League Baseball for that answer to be yes, but it does feel like there's kind of a little bit of a crossroads for what Portland's going to be as a sports town kind of upon us.
I think that's absolutely fair. Should we move on to our final topic? Since we've talked a lot.
Blazer Vision. I don't know how much we have to say about Blazer Vision, because it's a good thing.
Yep.
And we've said before it was going to be a good thing. The games are going to be easier to watch. If you live in a market in Oregon that has a Sinclair channel, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, we did this before, Portland, Eugene, Medford.
Yeah.
You're within one of their, range of their signal, you're getting the Blazers for free if you have an antenna. And that is such a game changer for fans. So kudos to the Blazers for doing it. Kudos to Jody Allen for, taking the financial hit on the short term to get out of the Root Sports deal. I even appreciate bringing back Blazer Vision, because I think it's a nice nod to those of us who are old enough to remember Blazer Vision. I think it's just a win across the board. And I think fans need to start connecting with these young players the Blazers have. They're not going to be good, but if they're easier to watch, they're going to be easier to root for. And I think that, the Blazers are not going to be good, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be fun. And I think there is potential with this group to be fun, and fans need to be able to see that.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew that this is where, the moment that that Comcast came out and said we're moving Root to the highest tier, that was it. There was no that deal with the Blazers was going to be done. So we all knew that this was coming this year. We all knew that there was no way they were going to be back on Root for one more year. It is unfortunate to me. That I guess it all would have ended this way anyways. But Root, the Root deal ends up ending a lot of people's jobs,
Yes.
and then ended up not being what anybody wanted it to be. So that's really unfortunate to me that all these things were done, and people lost jobs at Comcast Sportsnet Northwest, who we know personally, and now it's like, oh well, okay, for what? But eventually this would have happened anyways. They would have gone the local route. So yeah, I just it's good for everyone involved, and yeah, that's all that can really be said about it. It's Blazers have not had a unanimous win in a while, so congratulations to the fine folks over there, because nobody has said anything bad about this situation.
Yeah, I think just the fact that you are, doing something that is following through on a promise to the fans, right? Dwayne Hankins has said pretty consistently that their goal was to be in front of as many, to be easy to be watched by as many fans as possible. And this backs that up. You made good on that promise to your fans, and it seems like the franchise was putting the fans first as opposed to the bottom line, or some sort of business component. It is driven by delivering for the fans. Now, of course, I mean, obviously they want to make money on it too, and they want everybody to buy the $116 streaming package. But I mean, that's a lot easier ask than what people were paying on a monthly basis just to have Root in their cable package. So, I mean, across the board, good stuff.
Good on you. At least we're ending on a positive note here.
I was going to say, speaking of across the board good stuff, way to bring the high heat today, Brenna. Thank you very much. And you've got some high school football to get out to, I'm assuming, this afternoon and evening.
Yes, high school football. But before that, actually, Megan Rapinoe talking at UP today because of their Hall of Fame class. And boy, could there not be a better day for Megan Rapinoe to be talking in the city of Portland. Thank you, Megan.
Megan Rapinoe and Christine Sinclair have a bit of a rivalry, I think we could say, between the two of them over the years. They've developed, from teammates to rivals. I'm glad you brought this up. And I was about to do the sign off, but I am going to make this point. Okay. If Megan Rapinoe and Christine Sinclair are rivals, do you think that Christine Sinclair feels like she might have or takes any pleasure in crashing Megan Rapinoe's Hall of Fame day and making it her retirement day? Did she upstage her rival?
Oh, man, I didn't think about it in terms of that.
Let's let that marinate over the weekend.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see how it plays out. Let's see what Pino has to say at her Hall of Fame induction, which obviously is almost surprising it took this long, but maybe she was too busy.
I think it was
the
that.
Hall of Fame.
I mean,
and she's finally retired as well. So
she's finally retired. She's not playing, whereas she was playing in the fall, however many years on end. So I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, and we'll see Christine Sinclair in there. Is she not in there already? I'm not that familiar with
the
I
don't think Portland she is, but I bet you
so
anything.
When she retires next year, we'll be doing this again with Christine Sinclair.
Exactly. Yeah, next year, I'm sure next year she'll be in the Hall of Fame class. So
bringing it full circle like we like to do on the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Brenna Greene, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you. And I will see you at Blazers Media Day next week.
Monday morning, bright and early.
Which kind of tells you about where we are on the fall calendar. Exciting stuff. Thanks so much to everybody for listening to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. For the lip readers out there watching on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Certainly appreciate everyone for supporting the Oregonian Sports, watching Brenna on KOIN and Portland CW in those Oregon State Beavers post-game shows. Appreciate everyone's time and attention, even if you are listening to us on 1.5 speed. Take care.